Broadcasting from the crypt. Welcome to Velvet Bite Radio.
You've entered Velvet Bite Radio, my friends, where the undead speak and the forgotten bite back. I'm your host, Melissa Dawn Harris, writer, researcher, and devoted wanderer through vampire folklore, history, and film. Each week, we descend into the crypt of culture to uncover the myths, monsters, and meaning behind the vampire's eternal allure. So pour a glass, dim the lights, and let's begin. Ooh, welcome back to Velvet Bite, everybody. I'm super excited about this show. I was wondering, what is it that I am going to be doing the show on? I just, I was floundering with it all week. And then I remembered last week, I believe it was John Connor in the audience. I think it was him. I could be wrong. But he mentioned to me about the new Dracula film, and had I seen it yet or seen the trailer? And I hadn't. I had heard of this, but I hadn't seen the trailer. So I thought, oh, yeah, right, there's a new Dracula film. And I'm so like, what kind of person am I sitting here running a vampire show and I'm not even up on the latest movie? So I went and updated myself. And right away, I was like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a trailer review. It's the perfect thing to do because, like I've always said, Dracula never dies. And these film directors are proving me right that Dracula indeed never dies. He just keeps reincarnating himself and repackaging and borrowing and grabbing from other films and inspiring other film directors to keep telling his tale over and over again in a different way. There you go. So the movie is actually not released in the United States or the United Kingdom or Canada yet. It was released on July the 30th in France, of all places. It is called Dracula, a Love Story, and it is, this will make sense, directed by Luc Besson, who's French. He, as you might know, was the director of movies like Leon the Professional, The Fifth Element, La Femme Nikita. Really interesting movies like that. And people in the comments, I'm going to get to your comments soon. We're going to do this. We're going to do a review of this trailer. And I've got some visuals. We're going to do a comparison about this compared to Coppola's Dracula and maybe other ones. And then we'll get to your comments and we'll pop them on. So keep questions and ideas coming. And this will help people roll in. This gets more people rolling into the scene. But yeah, Luc Besson. It stars Caleb Landry Jones as Dracula. It has Christoph Waltz. They just call him the priest. They don't even use the word, like they don't call him Abraham Van Helsing, as far as I know. It's got Ewan Abid. I think he plays Jonathan Harker. And it has Matilda De Angelis. I think the names are all different. If you go check IMDb, and we'll go to that and look at it, the names of the characters are different. There's not a Mina. There's not an Abraham Van Helsing. There's no Lucy. There's no Dr. Seward. It, as far as I can tell, takes a place in France and not England when Dracula makes his way. So it's very different. It's very different to the novel. We're not don't expect the novel. You should never really expect the novel, especially when it comes to Dracula, I have to say. So yeah, it has those actors in it. And I believe this movie was shot in France and Finland. Whereas the Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992, one of my favorites, by the way, That was shot on a soundstage. In Universal Studios, they might have used MGM or something like that for a little bit of stuff, but it was all shot on studio in order to keep the budget down. And at the time, American Zoetrope, that was Francis Ford Coppola's company, was struggling financially. And his film, the Bram Stoker's Dracula, saved the company at the time. So, how many of you are in? Incognito is in the room. John Connor, Kirby, thank you guys so much. John aside, he had to work the late shift, so he couldn't be here. Well, we'll be waiting for you to watch it. You can watch it anytime you guys want. You can rewatch it after the live. But let's cover something first. I'm going to give people a little bit more time. You know, people are late. We'll give people a little bit more time to stream in. Before we do the review of the actual trailer, which it's an exciting trailer. I was excited by it, but we'll get to it when we get to it. But I did a poll. And the polls on YouTube only allow you to give 4 choices. So I was limited and I asked who was the best Dracula of all times. Pyramid 7, thumbs up on the video. Absolutely, Pyramid. Thank you so much. Thumbs up on the videos, peeps. Thank you for joining the stream. But we did a poll. I did a poll, I should say. And I asked people, here's the list of Draculas. Which one is the best, is your favorite all time? And I waited till about 4:30 p.m. my time to kind of take a screenshot and let you guys know. And I'm going to share the results with you, let some more people stream in, and we're going to see who is the all-time favorite Dracula. I did include this Dracula. So this is not including this one, because most people haven't seen it yet because it's not out. It's out in France, so most people won't know about this Dracula, so it's not really fair to include it. So maybe by the end of this year. I recommend if they do release it here in the United States, they go between October and December. That's the best time for movies like this. So let's check out. There we have it. There was a total of 80 people. I clipped it off. There was a total of 80 votes. Christopher Lee took the lead. It was close, and it was close all throughout. Bela Lugosi, Christopher Lee, and Gary Oldman were like 32%, 33%. They were sometimes at the same number, but the final number was 31% loved the iconic Bela Lugosi. 36% was for the very mean, obeying, aristocratic Christopher Lee version. 30% loved the, love unrequited, romantic Gary Oldman version. And 3% voted for the Claes Bang version that was just on the BBC or Netflix. He was kind of a nasty guy. It wasn't my favorite, though. So there you go. Christopher Lee is still winning out. That's only 80 votes, but that's not bad. Christopher Lee, the king of Dracula. How about that? Everybody, after all these years, still loves a Christopher Lee. I love Christopher Lee myself, although Gary Oldman is one of my favorites. But I didn't include things like Nosferatu because it's not officially Dracula. But if you go and watch the 1970 film Nosferatu Vampire from 1979 by Werner Herzog, really good film. And we'll probably do a review of it at some point. But now on to the important part. We're going to go into the review of the trailer. Starring Christoph Waltz, Caleb Landry Jones, directed by Luc Besson. Let's watch the trailer. And then we can go into how we feel. I'm going to have some stuff to show you about how similar this is to other movies. What inspiration you think they might have, and how, it's hard to tell from a trailer sometimes because oftentimes you don't get the whole movie in a trailer, so we don't know exactly what it's going to be. I think it's over 2 hours long. So we got a 2-minute, 22-second trailer. And what does it tell us? And what can we expect from this film of Dracula? So that was Jonathan Harker getting out. I've got this sped up a little, just so the algorithm knows.
Tell me your story.
My story.
Okay, so pausing it again for a little commentary. Very medieval here, very different from any of the other styles. I really get this real sense of a medieval French. There's a lot of French influence here, so let's keep going. So that's the French trailer. You can see, and they probably dubbed it over. Oh yes, Count Yorga. We have some Count Yorga fans in the room. I love Count Yorga. My gosh, do I ever love Count Yorga. So my first, I think there's other trailers of this, so I might go find another one, but my first impression is of a lot of similarities in the narrative as Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, and that is being talked about a lot on social media where people are using that as a criticism. So I don't know what you guys think about that as a criticism, but remember, one of the things I picked out is it is directed by Luc Besson, and Luc Besson has worked with Gary Oldman on The Fifth Element and Leon the Professional. So he's worked with Gary Oldman, who played Dracula in 1992 on multiple films. So I'm not sure if I consider it like an insult, as more of like a tribute and a throwback. Maybe he was so inspired by that film, because it was a very inspiring film. And I get the sense in this movie that it's shot on different locations, not on a soundstage. So you get a really different feel than Coppola's, but you can see the influence strong. Coppola's Dracula was shot on sound sets. So that really has the effect that instead of getting a movie that's influenced by the environment, you actually control the environment. You can make it more theatrical, make it feel more Shakespearean. You have a lot of control over the lighting and how things are perceived. You can build a false world a lot better, as when you go on location, you're influenced by that environment. It's going to have a certain feel to it. So I notice this difference right away, is that it feels like, yes, there's CGI and stuff like that, but there's also scenes that are shot on location as opposed to a sound stage. So that's one difference. I'm going to see if I can find another trailer to this. One that, if they have any more, because sometimes they come out with, and I don't want to do this, someone's just trying to explain the ending of this movie already. Oh my God, no, don't. Okay, we got a second trailer. Let's do it. Let's do it up.
With Liberty Mutual, you can customize your
No,
car
we don't
insurance
want Liberty Mutual, because we don't want commercials on here.
Only
So here we go. Let's make it bigger. Let's do the second one.
Only in blood do we find the truth, and I will find it. Blood is everything you need.
Death is a privilege that God grants you and denies me.
Tell me your story.
My story. 400 years waiting for her return.
Now we are gone. My life no longer belongs to him.
Okay, already we're getting a very different feel. You can sense this sort of Latin French influence in that one scene where she's got the fake fangs on. It's like they're at a vampire party or something. I just get this feeling that, and then the scene here, they're showing the history of Vlad. Now, I'm not sure. A lot of people love Caleb Landry Jones, the actor. I don't know a lot about him. I suspect I probably will prefer Gary Oldman because that's my Gen X Dracula, but I'm assuming he does a fair, decent job here. He looks a lot different than I would expect Vlad to look, but this isn't a historical documentary. This is, fiction, so let's go with it.
Here you are.
Have we met before?
Count Dracula.
Repent for your salvation.
My salvation.
You are her damnation.
This man is the devil.
Can't spell putting on me.
He's here.
I apologize for my dramatic entrance.
Okay. Wow. Okay, that was good. That was a better trailer, but you can see the similarities of the old Count, and the accent I think is really good. You can see that similarity that they've got going there with the Bram Stoker's Dracula version. You can definitely, it's kabuki. It's a weird old Count, and in the book he's not quite as exotic. He starts off as an old man in the book, and he gets younger. When he's in England, the more blood he drinks, he gets younger. And this obviously happens in all these movies. Most movies don't show him old to young. So this one obviously is doing that, and they followed in the footsteps of the 1992 Dracula. And Christopher Lee starred in a Dracula in the 70s with Jess Franco, where he did that, but he didn't look kabuki. He had the short gray hair and he had the carotid mustache, which is how it's described in the book, by the way. He's not described as this kabuki, but remember when Bram Stoker is writing this book, he's writing it in 1897. It's published, so he's been writing it in the 1890s. And there was a social anxiety about immigration and people coming from the East and strangeness coming, because there was a lot of immigration coming in for decades. And also, he wrote it just after Jack the Ripper, a serial killer who people thought were a certain, and it's actually been linked to the killer was a certain, how do I say this without getting banned? A certain group of people, we'll just put it this way. And there was a lot of cultural change at this time because these massive companies that were starting, factories, and the Industrial Revolution were bringing people in from the countryside to work in the cities, which we know is a disaster. They're bringing all these immigrants in to work in their factories as well. So when you wonder where we get that from, we can thank the Industrial Revolution in England. That's how they are. They just import all the people from around the world. So there was this anxiety that's in Bram Stoker's Dracula about stuff coming from the East and changing the culture and changing the women. It's there. It's in this. It's a subcontext of the book. And so you see this with a lot of these designs. I think people are placing it in the designs of the character of Dracula. Like, he's really exotic in this one. He's really exotic in the Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1992. He's almost kabuki theater exotic in the 1992 one. And he really does. When I seen that scene in this trailer of him is very different, but it still had that same feel where the castle isn't a lively castle anymore. It's itself like a rotting tomb. And the Count looks spooky. I don't know how Jonathan Harker goes past the threshold and be like, hey, this is normal. Let's do this up. I don't know how he does it. I'd be running for my horses. I'd be like out of there. It just wouldn't happen. But so sorry, I'm going blurry. I have no idea what my camera's up to. But there is this really weird and strangeness to Dracula that defies nature. He's like the paranormal. He is defying God. He defies nature. He can now grow from old to young. They're going to show that in this film. They show it in Bram Stoker's Dracula. And so you see that Luc Besson is heavily, and if my camera doesn't start going blurry, I'm going to go Dracula on its ass. What is going on today? Luc Besson is heavily influenced by Coppola. And I don't think people should be offended by that. I think it's a tribute to what Francis Ford Coppola did. And I don't think that should put you off going to see this movie whenever it does come out in North America. But there is this definite Coppola homage, but there's this French feel to it. And you can see it in the ballroom, in those type of scenes. So we're going to go and look at some comparisons. First of all, we're going to look at the poster design, because I don't think he's just pulling from Coppola. I think he's pulling also from Bela Lugosi. And he's pulling from like Gothic style, mixing it with some kind of Art Nouveau, Art Deco. So we're going to take a look at some of the posters of different Dracula films. And this first one, this is of the Dracula that's out now. This is Luc Besson. And you can see they've used the white space here around Dracula's cape to look like fangs. It's a really smart design. But this cape that he's wearing and the neck and the suit really kind of, to me, it's not Christopher Lee. It's not Gary Oldman. It's Bela Lugosi. That's very Bela. And you see here Bela. This is the poster. The third one is the poster with Bela Lugosi. Now, the font isn't the same. Dracula and Nosferatu here have a similar font. Nosferatu is very German expressionism. So this is the poster for that. And then the Bram Stoker's Dracula poster, if you have a look, is quite different. It's saying something very different. It's showing the stone wall of the castle and Dracula written in blood. Love never dies. But the theme of Bram Stoker's Dracula and Luc Besson's Dracula is the same. This obsessive hunting for your love that has been lost, that was murdered during war, that unrequited love, that you felt almost betrayed by the church. They're betrayed by this religion. They become this breathing dead thing just despite the religion that they feel didn't protect their wife or their loved one, whatever it could be. And you can see that playing through these films, these two films. That is actually not Dracula 1992. They didn't come up with that theme. That theme was first visited in Dark Shadows with Barnabas Collins. And then Dan Curtis, the creator of Dark Shadows, visited it in his form of Dracula with Jack Palance in the 70s, I think it was. Dan Curtis is the one who first was showing us this vampire who wasn't just straight up evil like Christopher Lee or Bela Lugosi or a charming psychopath. He's showing us a vampire who is a fallen angel, a fallen hero, a tragic case. Now, we're seeing this being replayed again. It's obviously a very enticing motive to do in movies, this fallen angel. Okay. I'll take your comments in a few minutes. I have some imagery to go on, and I want to show you scene for scene how strong of an influence that Coppola was. And if you have any other films that you think influence, mention it in the comments, and I'll bring it up after I go through these scenes. But I have like a screen comparison to how much Luc Besson was inspired by Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. And it makes me realize a lot of people don't like it. I have a friend, his name's Gary Parsons. His father worked for Hammer Horror and knew Christopher Lee, and he hates this Dracula. He hates Gary Oldman Dracula. And I don't get why he hates it. I love it, but to each their own. You know, he's a great guy. He's a film director himself, and he's totally, you know, entitled to that. So let's go through scene by scene. I'm going to show you how close some of these scenes are borrowed. The street scene. On the right is Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, where he's approaching Mina. And on the left, he's the same thing. It's a similar street scene where he's approaching her. I'm assuming it's in Victorian era because of the garb she's wearing. So you can see this similarity going on here. And I apologize to you guys if you're listening on the audio podcast. I'm going to put these up for free on Substack, all these imagery, and you can look at the comparison. And I will post it up. So make sure you're subscribing on YouTube because I will let you know under the post category where these are. I'm going to put them up on Substack for free. So here we have another scene. This is the dance scene. On the left, it's the 2025 version. It's a more Parisian influence and they're dancing together. And then you have Dracula and Mina dancing together on the right from 1992. Bram Stoker's Dracula. There it is. So close. So the themes, the dancing themes, the seduction that Dracula does over Mina. So let's continue. This is an interesting one. So we haven't seen the film, so we don't know exactly how it plays out. I don't know exactly the context of the scene, but on the left is the 2025 movie, and that has Christoph Waltz. He's got a flaming cross, and he's holding it at this girl. And I'm not sure who she is, or if she's Dracula's victim, or what the difference in their narrative is. And when I find out, I'm going to come on here and talk about it, guys. On the right, you have Anthony Hopkins. He played Abraham Van Helsing. He was called Abraham Van Helsing. In the 2025 movie, Christoph Waltz's character is just called a priest. And he too, they're doing the same thing. They're holding the cross. Iconic. In different scenarios. He's in an asylum, it looks like, on the left. And on the right, I think he's in Lucy's tomb, warding her off. But they're warding a female vampire off. Very similar. This one's definitely a steal. 100%. The two top images are from Bram Stoker's Dracula, and it's the battle scene. The bottom one, I clipped it from one of the trailers, and they do almost an identical red with a dark silhouette battle scene in this 2025 movie. It's like, it's one of the, I don't know any other vampire movie, Dracula movie that did this. As far as I know, Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula was the first one to do it. So the fact that they've done it in 2025, that's direct. That's a direct lift. 100% direct lift. Okay. So we got this scene here. I've got a whole bunch of them. I got a whole bunch of them. So I'm only going to do a few. This is good. On the left, you've got Dracula, who has been slighted. His wife is dead. He's laying over the body. They've got the crucifixes there. He's grieving. You can see this amazing armor that they talked about in the comments of the live chat. He's wearing this scaly armor, but it's silver. And then on the right, there's Gary Oldman. He's leaning over Winona Ryder's Mina, but he's got different armor. It's, what was her name? Aiko Ishioka or something like that. She was the costume designer for the 1992 Dracula. It almost looks like sinewy muscles. It was very unique armor. It was very dramatic and theatrical, very different than a medieval armor. The Dracula on the left in this movie, played by Caleb Landry Jones, he's got more of a medieval armor, but it's pretty cool. It's very dragon scale-like Vlad the Impaler, Vlad Dracula the Dragon. So I like that they put this dragon scale motive there. But they're doing the same thing. They're over the body of their dead beloved in like a chapel-like scene. Totally, yeah. Here we go. I have another scene. Him kind of, in this one on the left from 2025, he's leaning in close to her, teaching her to aim a gun. And we got Gary Oldman and Winona Ryder. He's leaning in close. He catches her tears and turns them into crystal. Kind of sappy, but it still happens. So similar. And we got one more scene, very iconic. The embrace. The medieval lover's embrace before he's about to go out to war. On the left, it's 2025. On the right, it's 1992. So I rest my case. I think I have proven enough that this is a lift. If you don't believe me now, I don't know what to say. We will have, like I said, we will have our moment to watch this film and see what it is, but it is so close to that. It's hard to believe anything else. All right, let's take some comments. Let's take some comments from the video. Let's see what you guys got. John Connor says, Sir Christopher Lee definitely made the Count a scary creature of the night. He did. And you guys know when Christopher Lee did his Dracula, it was like Technicolor. It was the first time you've seen fangs and blood like that. You were not going to see fangs and blood in the Bela Lugosi version. Bela Lugosi relied a lot on presence. He had the accent, that kind of, European menace, as Americans would have seen it in those days. And he had that suaveness. There was a danger about Christopher Lee that Lugosi didn't have. And of course, we have Kirby reminding us of Count Yorga, he downplays his Dracula or Count Yorga most of the time. So when he does go crazy, it's crazy. He runs at you like a crazy zombie. Okay, so we have John saying, not sure if anyone else liked Luke Evans' versions of Dracula in Dracula Untold. I definitely felt like Luke Evans looked the most like the real Vlad Tepes, and it had great sword fighting scenes. Well, and that's about the films and the scenes like that. When you do a lot of outdoor scenes and scenes like that, the main focus is the battle, and then the environment just becomes background. It's not really that important. It is important, but it's not. So it just becomes background, and the focus is the battle, because they want you to know he's at battle with the Turks. And this is an important part of the movie, which I find interesting that they want to go with a war with Iran now. And so this is coming out because there's always been this contention between Christianity and Islam, right back from, the Crusades. It's always been there. We're still playing it out because we're crazy. Because we're just crazy. So that's there. But then you go to a movie like Nosferatu, 1979, and the director, Werner Herzog, takes the environment, and instead of just being a backdrop for the human action, which is the focus, the battle, the environment becomes the character. It becomes the spooky, mysterious land in which Jonathan Harker must go through and be transformed. It actually has a presence and a power. And in the book, the Carpathians, they form like a horseshoe ring when it goes down into Romania, and they're described as this magical realm. Like it almost has a powerful magical presence in and of itself. And Dracula is hiding amongst that. And you have to delve into this world that is so separate from modern society to get to that realm where folklore rules. And it's hitting amongst the Carpathians. Kirby, the poster of Bela Lugosi's Dracula is very iconic. Absolutely. I'll pop that back up again. Let's take a look at that poster. It is very iconic. A Nightmare of Horror, Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi, David Manners, Helen Chambers, and Dwight Frye. And Dwight Frye was an iconic Renfield. I don't know if Renfield plays in this new movie. I have no idea if they have a Renfield. But the Renfield was supposed to be like a figure. that serves Dracula. And if you don't remember on the one about the narcissist, he's kind of like the codependent little flying monkey, and Dracula is this elite narcissistic psychopath that rules Renfield, and Renfield is to protect him because Dracula can't. Okay, I shouldn't say Dracula can't go out in the day, because he can. He's just very weak in the day in the book. In the book, sunlight does not kill Dracula. In the book, you have to destroy the soil in his coffin, stake him through the heart, shove the heart in his mouth and all this stuff. It's not sunlight. There's a very Christian religious process to destroy Dracula in the book. I'm going to look it up on TikTok and see if we can find a few videos that might help us further understand what's going on, because this Dracula has a very French influence, and there's one scene when we're looking at that trailer where they're showing Mina, and there's these quick flashes as she's walking forward, and it's almost like it shows her in multiple different time periods. And I'm wondering, I don't know because I haven't seen the film, if Dracula has tried to find her multiple times or become aware of her multiple times throughout history, reincarnating. It's bringing this reincarnation, which I find weird because I don't think Christianity believes in reincarnation. I could be wrong. Tell me in the chat if I'm wrong about that. But we're going to go over to Twitter, or not Twitter, screw Twitter. We're going to go over to TikTok, my friends, because I know there's going to be some interesting videos over there. Let's switch her out on this movie. Now, I'm going to warn you guys of something. I didn't really want to bring this up, but I've been seeing this in the commentary. People are telling viewers to boycott this movie because they have an issue. They're accusing Luc Besson of SA, an RAP, you know what. And I went and looked it up, and I thought, should I even mention this in terms of Dracula? Is this even important? Like, what's going on? So I looked it up, and there was a case against him. It was someone he was in a relationship with. After the relationship ended, they accused him of RA, you know what, during the relationship. And they were going to bring it to court, but the person who was accusing him, their lawyer, actually dropped it and said, you have no evidence of this. So it was thrown right at court because there's zero evidence. So that's a tough one. It's not something I want to bring up, but you're in a relationship, it's hard to say with shit like that. It's hard to say. And it's like, you know, I'm not, the guy's never been accused of any horrendous crimes that I know of, so I'm not going to tell people to boycott a movie. That's perfectly fine. So let's check this out, because it shows this in a unique way. Like, I don't know what this is. Okay, it looks like we're seeing Dracula from a whole bunch of different eras. And wow. Okay, so this is another one. Okay, I'm stopping that right now because that is music that I don't really want on here. I think there's a lot of people on TikTok making their own TikTok videos, but you can see they're showing Dracula time traveling. They're showing him in Victorian France. They're showing him in revolutionary France. They're showing him in medieval France. They're showing him in a whole bunch of different costumes, I would say, or outfits that are not medieval. So it's obvious this guy is going through time and looking through it. So that's the twist here. He's just not going to England in Victorian time. He's going different places throughout time looking for it. So I find that very interesting. All right, here we go. Another comment. Watching the trailer, the Renfield may be a woman. You see a scene where Dracula is walking in an insane asylum and you hear a woman say, Master. Yes, you're right. See, different twist. A female slave. It could be. Count von Krolock from the Fearless Vampire Killers is another great kind of Dracula. I almost forgot about that. Great movie. The Fearless Vampire Killers. Count von Krolock is played by Ferdy Mayne. I think that's his name. Great vampire. It has this wonderful vampire ball scene where they're dancing and then the heroes go in to save her and they discover them because everybody else is invisible in the mirror in the ballroom. The movie Van Helsing, I think, stole that one right from the Fearless Vampire Killers. You'll see that in Van Helsing where they have a Dracula character there. It's got what's his name there? Hugh something. He's Van Helsing. And they do that similar ballroom scene, and they totally lifted that from the Fearless Vampire Killers. I think that was done in 1968. So, total lift. But you can see it's borrowing from Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1992, but it's also got its own twists. And I think this Dracula is traveling through time. Let's have a look. Yeah. He literally travels through time. So he's time traveling. And so we don't just get to see him as this count in the warrior stage and then this old count. And I'm not sure how they present that time travel and what the narrative is. Most books, we don't know any back history of Dracula at all, except for that he mentions that he's from a line of great warriors, like he's a great warrior. He does kind of mention that in the book very briefly, but we don't really get an in-depth. And what the great thing about film and cinema is all these directors have pulled something from this book and made their own film on it. The writer who wrote the book and the script for 1992's Dracula, it's James V. Hart. I'm sure he must have been influenced by the Dark Shadows and the Dracula that ensued from the Dark Shadows producer. He decided to really play up the warrior Vlad Tepes and the history of it, and then play up a love story around it. He was shopping that one for a while, and it was Winona Ryder who had the script. She was supposed to have been in Francis Ford Coppola's Godfather 3, and she had to drop out due to exhaustion, and so she kind of felt bad, so she shopped this script to Francis Ford Coppola and said she'd be willing to do it. And unbeknownst to her, Francis Ford Coppola was a massive fan of the book Dracula, having read it when he was younger, and he said yes. And that's how that got started. But this script by James V. Hart had been shopped around Hollywood for a while, and nobody had taken it up. And then Winona Ryder discovered it and presented it to Francis Ford Coppola. So there you have it, guys. I'm going to take a few minute breaks. I'm going to put a little scene on. I'm just going to take a few minute drink break, and we're going to come back and take more of your comments, have some questions. If you guys have any links that you want me to check out, put it up in the show notes. I'm going to be right back, guys. I'm going to put some spooky music on for you guys, and I'll see you in a few minutes. They're saying, they can't hear me because my microphone was on pause, so that's why you couldn't hear me. I was just telling you guys that I was checking on my dogs because they get triggered, and I figured it out. We have the Ring doorbell, and whenever it goes off, they literally lose it. So I just unplugged it temporarily. So they're good. They're good. They're not flipping out this time. They're calm, because that doorbell sound is literally like we did the Pavlov experimentation on them, and we're ringing a bell. Well, they just lose it. So I spared them from that just for a little bit. I'll plug it back in when we're on the go. All right. So John hasn't seen The Fearless Vampire Killers, but I do know it's one of Roman Polanski's early film. It is, and it features his wife, Sharon Tate. It's actually, is it her last film? I don't know. It's one of, she didn't do that many films, unfortunately, because we know she suffered a horrible fate under the hands of the Manson's family, which is that's a different podcast. That is some crazy MK Ultra, CIA, FBI stuff. But it does have Sharon Tate in it, and she's absolutely stunningly beautiful. I recommend you guys watch it if you can. I believe we have it on VHS. I actually have it on YouTube, in my YouTube movies that I can watch. It's a good movie. It's a little slower pace for you Gen Zers. I'll admit that. But it's got this interesting perception of a vampire. So there, we have it. Now, back to Dracula and this film. And this idea that the vampire never dies. And that we always come up with creations and unique forms. And the idea that somehow Luc Besson is not good for copying this. And I showed you how closely he's copied, but I can imagine that there's different contexts and different layering on it. Now, there's no original, like everybody's borrowing from everybody, everybody's adapting stuff from everybody, but this is very close in visuals. I admit it's pretty close. And I think it just, like I said, it shows you how much of an influence Coppola's Dracula was to a lot of us Gen Xers. And I can't imagine that Luc Besson doesn't have respect for Gary Oldman, considering he worked with him on 2 films. And it was so impressive. Gary Oldman is such an impressive actor. I believe he finally won the Academy Award. Was it when he played Winston Churchill? But I thought he deserved it long before that. He's just such a good transformative actor. He's not like your one-trick pony. Like you see Brad Pitt playing Brad Pitt a lot, right? Gary Oldman literally transforms and you don't even know Gary Oldman's there. He's that good. He's that good. I mean, the man played Winston Churchill. And I was like, where's Gary Oldman? Gary Oldman who? What? He's that good. Now, in this movie, Caleb Landry Jones, we're going to do a little slip over to IMDb. And we're going to look at some locations and some interesting tidbits about this movie to get a little bit more information. Because I don't know a lot about Caleb Landry Jones as an actor. Dracula Love Tale. But it's got Christoph Waltz in it. And I do know Christoph Waltz is a fantastic actor. The first time I ever seen Christoph Waltz was in Inglourious Bastards. He played this kind of Nazi character, and he was fantastic. So there we have it. Now let's see what they say. After his wife dies, a 15th century prince renounces God and becomes a vampire. Centuries later, in 19th century London, he sees a woman resembling his late wife and pursues her, stealing his own fate. Okay, so it is London. So I was incorrect, but it feels French. It doesn't, yeah. So it is London, but there is all these scenes almost like from France. So that's why I assumed he was like time traveling. I wasn't sure because they show these scenes that are very, not just Victorian London that's there, but they show these scenes that almost look like they're, in Marie Antoinette's time before the revolution. So, plot summary, trivia. Let's have a look. One trivia. They want me to rate the Dracula. Can't do it. Haven't seen it yet. Sorry, guys. Can't help you out. Historian Martin Mayers, who served as production consultant on this film, had previously worked in the same capacity on another Dracula adaptation, The Last Voyager of the Demeter. That's the ship that Dracula travels on to make his way to England, making him a rare expert to contribute to multiple interpretations of the iconic vampire legend. So they worked with the same guy who did that script. That's interesting. I didn't know that. He's a historian. Naked Gun. Here it is. So it was shot, filming locations: Kumo, Finland; Sotkamo, Finland; Kajani, Finland; Paris, France; and Dark Matter Studio, Tigre, France. Dark Matter Studio. Interesting. So that's why I keep feeling like it's French, because it's not shot in England. Shooting in England, on the streets of England, would be very hard. And a lot of times films in the 90s, anyways, in 2000s, they would use the Czech Republic to shoot sort of, a Victorian city, as it were. They would totally use it. So, another comment. The first time I saw Caleb Landry Jones was in The Last Exorcist. I am going to have to check that out. It's pronounced Demeter. Yeah, the Demeter, the Demeter. I actually had, I'm half Eastern European, and I had friends whose fathers immigrated here too. And one of my friends' name was Demeter, the same as the ship. They called him. His name was Demeter. He's no longer with us, but he was Eastern European as well. So I should have known to say that properly. I think I got a dry throat. So they filmed it last year. Like I said, I don't know when it's coming out. It could be, I would hope it comes out between October and December here. That seems to be the best time to release a film like that in North America. July just doesn't feel like the time where I want to go see a Dracula film. I would, but it's usually the fall to winter here where people hunker down and go see films like that. Like in the summer, most people are camping or, they're doing other family stuff. They're not into that quite as much. So we know where it was shot. It's interesting. So it's okay. So it's only grossed $2 million, but it's only been released in France like a week ago. So if they do a wider release, maybe it'll make a little bit more money. So I don't know. This is crazy. Ewan's Abbott. Does anybody know anything about Ewan's Abbott? I have never heard of him. He's from France? Okay, so he's been in the Andor, The Last Rifleman, Tuesday, Crime, and Tout à l'heure. This is a French actor playing Jonathan Harker. And of course, Christoph Waltz. They call him the priest. We know Christoph is a great actor, but I find it interesting that they didn't want to use Abraham Van Helsing. So I'd like to see how they. Because, Abraham Van Helsing isn't in every single Dracula film from Hammer Horror either. Sometimes it's a priest, sometimes it's a father or a bishop or just a young man. It changes. Abraham Van Helsing isn't in every film. He's in the first film, but maybe they felt like they wanted to take up that kind of helm that Hammer Horror did, where you see a priest or someone act as the Van Helsing character. I'm not sure. But it's interesting. It wouldn't be the first time that had been done. So I'm not getting anything too involved here. Who is I don't know who this actor is. Guillaume de Tonquedec. I probably butchered that one. He's from Paris, France. There you go. I have no idea. I've never heard of him before. Well, that's because he's in a lot of French productions, Melissa. And I would have never watched those. So let's go through some of the photography here. Now, here they are. It's an outdoor scene. I'm assuming this was shot in Finland, the snow scenes. I'm going to assume that was Finland. There's the same scene. They're in the asylum. That might actually be the kind of female Renfield figure. That's what they might be doing here. There's Christoph Waltz again. He's the Van Helsing person that has this sense. He knows about Dracula. He knows the history. He's kind of on to him. He realizes here's his foe that he has to face. There's Luc Besson filming the movie. There he is again, talking to Caleb Landry Jones on production. Wow, look at that. Look at that armor. That's amazing. I wonder how heavy that was. That has to be some heavy armor. My God. There is a different photo, like a movie poster in the purple. So they've done a purple one. I love that they're using purple. This is in a different language. What is this, Russian? Yeah, it's Russian. This is the Russian poster. Very different. It's interesting when you go to the movies and you see how they design posters for different countries depending on the market. And that's always been the way. Or like a UK title will be changed to appeal to an American audience. This one looks like, this is Ukrainian. So this is the Ukrainian poster for Dracula. I love this poster. I love the graphic design. I love how the white space is the fangs around the cape. It's just such an imposing graphic. There we got this again. This is the Australian, Canada, United Kingdom, United States poster. So this is the poster that we're going to see. It's in French though. In Germany had the same poster as the Russian. This one is Brazil and Portugal. So this is the one they're seeing. Russia again. And this is this one for Brazil, Canada, France. And there we go. That's it. That's all they've got. They don't have any more scenes. What I've showed you, I grabbed from a post. Oh, I should try and find that post. Let's do this. Sorry for the pause, my friends. I'm looking for, I think this is it. No, there was this really great site and I can't find it now, but it was talking about the different scenes. The different scenes from the Dracula movie. And, well, I seem to have lost it, so we won't worry about that. Let's pop back here. They need to shoot more Dracula films in actual Romanian. Such a beautiful countryside and locations as seen in the subspecies films. Yeah, and probably one of the closest would be the Nosferatu from 1979, as it shot some of the mountain scenes. They couldn't get into Romania. I think there might be a reason, a restriction, a technical thing why they can't get into that area. Maybe a government thing. I think in 1979 it had to do with who the government was and that it was too risky. But he shot near the Carpathians as close as he could to get that sense of the Carpathians. Though I'm going to pop up an image for you. And I'm going to show you how the Carpathian Mountains form in Romania. Go back to our sharing. Sharing is caring, my friends. Sharing is caring. Google Maps. You have a look, and you see here, it tells you it's Slovakia and Romania. This is the Carpathian Mountains. It goes in this horseshoe right through Romania. And that is what they're talking about. When they talk about this magical area, they're talking about this whole area that's surrounded in this horseshoe of the Carpathians. And you got Moldova, here's Ukraine, Belarus, Russia's over here. But you can see how close Romania is, and Bulgaria and Serbia, that they were like the countries that were stopping Istanbul and Turkey and Islam from coming into Europe. They're literally bordering this country. Then you got Italy over here, Greece will spanned out, and you can see you can see how close they are. But this is the range here that comes down and forms a horseshoe, and you can see how close they are to Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Jordan. Then a lot of this is, we've got Africa over here, Northern Africa, not Sub-Saharan Africa. Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Iran, and if you go farther, you've got, Iraq is like Mesopotamia. It's ancient land. But it just shows you, because we're all the way over here, on our own. So sometimes we don't realize, that Europe borders these lands of Islamic religion. And there's always been this contention there about that. So just a little geography lesson for everybody. Apologies. Didn't want to get too teacher-esque. Wanted to stay more in the vampire. But that's fine. It would be nice if they could shoot something in Romania, and maybe that political, barrier isn't there anymore. It would be nice if they could go film in the Carpathian Mountains. And I'm wondering, there's an actual movie about the actual ruler, Vlad Tepes, not Dracula, the fictional figure. There's a movie about him that was done in the 70s. And I'm wondering if they've shot in some of those scenes in some of the areas. It would be interesting to know. Let's have a look. Movie 1979, the same year that Nosferatu was done. Well, let's go have a look. So it was simply called Vlad Tepes, 1979. So we're gonna go back. We are gonna go back to IMDb, and we're gonna see where they shot it. Because if they've shot it in Romania, that's where I'm gonna direct you right now to go. Let's see if they tell us. All cast and crew. It gets a 7.5. Genre, trivia, quotes. Featured in Dracula, the true story. I'm trying to see. Yeah, it was filmed in Romania. So Vlad Tepes, it's a biographical pic shot in Romania. Filming locations. They've shot it in Romania, Corvin Castle, Transylvania, and Hunedoara. So check that movie out, because you're going to get authentic the wall falling, pre-Soviet Union collapsing. You're going to get this authentic Romanian culture, because it was still way behind Western civilization at the time. So I'm going to recommend you check that film out. You're going to get that authenticity that a lot of the movies just simply don't give you. And that is that. Well, we're coming up on the hour. We're past the hour. We're coming up on the hour of me talking and running out of a voice. So if you guys have any comments, I'll pop them up. And we got one from Kirby. Jack Palance's Dracula, directed by Dan Curtis, is very terrifying. And he's not romantic. He has rotted teeth and bad breath. There is I just think Jack Palance has bad teeth. That's just my opinion. It's what turned me off of that movie. I found it hard to see Jack, even though people really liked the rendition, I found it hard. I think it's because I watched it after I'd seen like City Slickers and stuff like that. I found it hard to see Jack Palance in the role of Dracula. There is a romantic element though, because if you go watch it, they do a backstory on him. They kind of do a flashback to losing his love. So he's a nasty one, but I don't know. And you know, the thing about Dan Curtis, when he wrote Dark Shadows, and we totally got to do a Dark Shadow show. We definitely do. But when he wrote about Dark Shadows, I think he was heavily influenced by the death of his mother. His mother had I think an aneurysm or something like that. And died right in front of him when he was 13, really young. And I think he was very affected by that, because how he writes the story and the narrative in Dark Shadows, it doesn't happen right away, but it eventually happens. And how he writes that is very, I find it's kind of harking back to that, maybe in an unconscious way, that what if there's a way that the people you loved, you know, reincarnated and came back, this kind of lost love. What if there's a way that we live forever and we can defy death and we can defy God? These themes play out. Now, in the original book, it's like evil. It's a defiance of God. In this one, we could call it more narcissistic. In some of these later films, it's like unrequited love. Like his love was so strong for her that he defeated the grave to come back and look for her. That sounds romantic, but it also sounds a little dysfunctional. It does sound dysfunctional, but there's that element playing through all of these modern movies that deal with these themes. It's there in the Jack Palance one, but you're right. I mean, his teeth are pretty bad. His teeth look like, oh my God. Let's have a look and see if we can find a picture of Jack Palance as Dracula. I think I have it on. Oh, this is a good one. You guys are going to love this. Let's see. Oh no, it's so small. Good Lord. Let's see. Oh, look at those. Nasty. That was nasty, man. It looks like someone. It doesn't look like he drank any blood. It looks like someone punched him in a bar. Yeah, he was an interesting. His teeth are, you know, honestly, I think it's just because they were smokers and everybody's teeth were yellow in those days. Look at this. This is, I think, what she's talking about. The rotty, nasty teeth. I'm trying to get a better picture of it. I just think Jack Palance had bad teeth. Yeah. And there he is strangling somebody. He's strangling his victim. Yeah. But as always, they all get theirs. In the end, by our heroes. By our heroes whom I don't know how it will play out. A lot of our films today are very nihilistic. I'm hoping it plays out good. I'm hoping that it's really positive in this film. I'm going to go check the film out. I went and seen Nosferatu I think it was in December. I went and seen it, or was it January? I checked it out by myself on a matinee. I'm glad I did. It was kind of gross. And I'm going to be having, at the end of this month, a guest on. I'm having Dee Dee on, and I'm sure we'll mention it. She kind of mentioned to me about how she felt it was a little gross in Nosferatu. He's like this nasty demon. Good Lord. So we'll be probably talking about that. But remember, Dee Dee's on the 21st. We're going to be here live next week. I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing. I'm trying to get some more guests in September. And I'm going to save the best guests, I think, for October. I'm going to line up a few of them and see if I can get them in for Halloween time. I'm going to try to get some authors that I know on, and some film directors, and maybe even some Dark Shadows, so we can have a fun time. And so I want to save the best for October. So we're going to be here next Thursday. I also want to do some experimentation streams with different times to test the YouTube algorithm. I've been searching it out a lot and when to post things, when to stream things. And so I'm going to be doing some experimentation. And if any of you have, you're here all the time and you have a better time, just, let me know in the comments or put it under this video about what would be a better time to do that. Also, we just bought tickets to go see a live play of Dracula in Ogden, here near where I live. And the theater is very Egyptian Art Deco. It is a cool theater. And we, in October, are going to be seeing a live play rendition of Dracula. I can't wait. I'm going to let you guys all in on it. 100%. So that's all I've got for the trailer. I'm excited about this movie. I'm not negative. I'm looking forward to the costumes, the set design, the exterior sets, the shots. I'm interested in this costume, this time change that you see, and those scenes I showed you of him in different, what feels French and Marie Antoinette and revolutionary kind of thing. I'm interested to see if I'm right, if he's traveling through time or what's going on. I'm avoiding all the reviews of it because I don't want them to spoil it for me. So please, Luc Besson, release this year in North America. I beg you, please. All right. So everyone, I thank you so much. Before I go, please go to the Substack. I've put some free articles out there, some paid ones and some free. You can access them for free. It is melissadonharris.substack.com. Check it out. The free one is on Ted Bundy. I also did a paid one on a witch who was a university professor in Canada, who I just did a little coverage about him doing exorcisms in haunted houses. That one's paid, but the Ted Bundy one is free for you guys. It's an article about a house local here. You can check that out on melissadonharris.substack.com. And please do not forget to subscribe. Click on that thumbs up. And the website, of course, is melissadonharris.com, where I will have everything updated and all the links. Please subscribe to us either on YouTube, Rumble, or Facebook. Links are all on the website. All right, guys, I'm going to tune out. We've been over an hour. And I'm going to see you next Thursday. And watch out. I might be doing some testing during the week to see other streams. Cheers.
Broadcasting from the crypt. Welcome to Velvet Bite Radio.
You've entered Velvet Bite Radio, my friends, where the undead speak and the forgotten bite back. I'm your host, Melissa Dawn Harris, writer, researcher, and devoted wanderer through vampire folklore, history, and film.